Atmosfear by Nobody. Chapter 5. Meeting the Teacher. Today we go see my brother, Mohammed told me as we walked down the hillside of our hotel in the early noontime the next day. He is professional guitar player here. He will teach you mundane guitar. But first, I need to get some money in town from one guy I know. Can't wait for it, I said, and tried to keep up with my partner's rapid trot down a narrow, steep shortcut that was covered with rubble. About halfway down, we came across an elderly bearded man with a flock of children trailing behind him. He was dressed in a conspicuous dark brown gown that reached down all the way to his sandaled feet and had a brimless white cap on top of his head. The long white beard especially made him stand out from all the other local men, who were, as a rule, clean-shaven. "Look," my partner said as we approached this motley crew, "that is Quran teacher." "I see," I said, "so that's why he looks that way." This thin, dignified pedagogue spotted us and slithered closer. I say slithered because I had a strange sensation that I was looking at a snake making its way to its prey. He snatched my partner's hand and spoke to him in a soft and yet frightfully assertive voice. His protruding, liquefied eyes stood wide open and seemed to pierce right into my friend's soul, making him stutter uncharacteristically and throw away his half-finished cigarette. Meanwhile, the students stood huddled in a group a little further back, abnormally quiet and yet looking at me quizzically. It was only the inhibiting presence of the schoolmaster that kept them from coming over to greet me. The conversation between him and my partner was carried out in Susu, but it was interspersed with some Arabic as well. I was able to recognize a certain passage from the Quran that I had learned years ago in Berlin from a Syrian fortune-teller. It appeared that this fanatic was actually testing my partner's knowledge of the holy book, as if he was one of his students. After finishing his absurd examination, the Reverend finally turned to me and grabbed my hand before I even had the time to extend it for a greeting. "How are you?" he said in perfect, velvety English. His grip was soft but decisive, like everything about him. The hypnotic eyes were dark green and unblinking, as if to lose sight of me for a second might have foiled his plans to win me over. "What is your religion, my friend?" he asked me straight away. "Buddhism," I answered with slight hesitation, since I'd always found it hard to categorize my spiritual sentiments under any single denomination. "I welcome you," he said, while strengthening his grip as he sensed my attempt to disengage my hand. "Thanks," I said. "This is such a beautiful country." "I welcome you to Islam," he finished his sentence with pointed emphasis. "Ah, right. Thanks." "Now," he said, getting down to business, "try to repeat after me." He started to recite a verse from the Quran, and I did my best to do his bidding, while actually enjoying the musicality of the strange words. It was fascinating to think that a considerable part of the world was chanting these same lines in order to achieve a connection with something greater than themselves. The prayers in Finnish churches were always monotonic, disgusting babbling that had no spiritual or aesthetic value. "That's good," he concluded at last and released my hand. "Now you must come visit me at the mosque sometime. It's very close by here." Of course, I said, I'd love to. He turned back to Mohammed and asked for his phone number, which was duly given. After that, he wished us a safe journey and hoped to see us again soon. That's good thing to happen, my partner enthused as we resumed our walk. He say he will help me study Quran also. I only know 1 or 2 prayer and I want to learn more, you know. That's great, I told him. Maybe we can go see the mosque too one of these days. We got ourselves a taxi car by the gas station and made our way to the center of Kindia, down that familiar sunny road that was filled with exciting life. But once in town, we were in for a strange surprise. The previously busy streets were almost devoid of people, and the entire market square that only yesterday had been crowded to the point of suffocation was now totally abandoned. It was as if a great plague had wiped out all the life around us. The rancid smell that hung around the place seemed to indicate that as well. "What the fuck going on?" my partner grunted as we sauntered in the eerily forsaken grounds among the empty stalls. He soon spotted a man walking by and went over to ask if he knew what had happened. "Oh shit," he told me after finishing the inquiry. "There's a strike going on here today." "Why?" I asked nervously. "Because of the president?" "Yeah, man. They want to protest all that shit in politics now. I glanced around the empty side streets with a growing sense of dread. "Oh, I hope they're not gonna start a riot in here." "No, man," my partner said with a wave of his hand. "This is Kindia. They have so much military here, nobody can do nothing like that. They all have them tanks and guns and shit. You see it before, right?" I didn't feel much assured by this presence of deadly force, but gave up the argument and followed him to the same little cafe terrace from the day before. It was thankfully still open, though not as crowded as last time. "Let's wait here," my partner said and brandished his phone. "I call this one motherfucker guy for my money." Soon enough, the person in question came over with a nervous smile, and there issued a quite dramatic shouting match in Susu that made the other clients wink at me with bemusement. As I listened to this harangue, I suddenly noticed that my legs were trembling uncontrollably. What could this be? I wondered in terror. Some fatal tropical disease? I glanced at my hand, and as if through a dream I saw it jittering as well. I interrupted my partner in the middle of his argument and pointed out to him what was happening to me. At once the contenders gave up their racket and turned their worried attention to me. What was wrong? Did I need water? Should we get back to the hotel? Leaning on their arms like a paralytic on our way to a taxi, I tried to think what might be the cause of this seizure. I had drunk water quite a lot, so it couldn't be dehydration. Sunstroke was out of the question, since I'd hidden myself in the shades like Count Dracula at his best. But then it hit me. Salt. I hadn't eaten anything since the previous evening for the simple reason that I hadn't felt hungry in the morning. But I had sweated and pissed all the salt out of my body, and that was a grave issue. Salt is just as important to the body in all its functions as water is. My dear mother had told me this numerous times before, but in my excitement I had forgotten all about it. "Shit," I said as I lay shaking on the back seat of the taxi. "I just need to eat salty food. Let's go to a shop and get something for me to eat." Soon enough, we were back at the gas station next to our hotel. I bought potato chips, canned food, beef jerky, mineral gas water, beer, anything salty I could get my hands on, and once back in the taxi, started to chug it down my throat, even though I felt like throwing up. "You sure you don't need a doctor?" my partner asked back at the hotel as he helped me to my bed along with my bag of food. "I'm pretty sure," I said with my mouth full of chips. "I'll let you know if I get worse." Beer and salty snacks for medicine. Not bad form of treatment in my opinion. But it took its time to rejuvenate me, and in order to keep my head from spinning, I sang John the Revelator, an old Afro-American spiritual off the top of my voice. Meanwhile, my partner and his friends sat in the terrace, probably shaking their heads at this crazy tourist. After this frightening episode had passed, I felt strong enough to go along with the original plan of going out to meet Mohammed's big brother. Taking my acoustic guitar with us, we returned down to the main road in order to catch a taxi. "Let's use Moto Taxi now, okay?" my partner said. "It's so fucking expensive with car. And also, the roads are so small over there that car cannot go inside." I couldn't refuse him, though I was scared stiff by the thought of getting on one of those dreaded rickety machines. At least we had one for each of us, instead of having to squeeze ourselves on a single motorcycle as many locals did. The man who offered to be my driver had nothing to protect his head except a children's hockey helmet. Mighty Ducks it was, and numerous sizes too small. As for myself, I only had my velvet cap to protect my precious brains from a possible impact. Thankfully, Mohammed took my guitar on his lap, since he knew that I would have my hands full just keeping myself from falling off. I hugged my driver like a jealous lover the whole way that we whizzed through the traffic in the blazing heat of the midday. We turned off the main road and began to climb up steep hills that revealed an immense green jungle around us, interspersed by huts and shops of different trades. I saw a blacksmith banging away at his metal pots, some impressive mosques with tall minarets, dilapidated schools and evangelical mission houses, junkyards and worn-out municipal courthouses, denoted by hand-painted signs. A gray mist of smog seemed to envelop the entire region, making it hard to see further than a half-kilometer even from a vantage point above the green landscape. After quite a butt-breaking trip up and down narrow dirt roads that had flocks of chicken and goats running over them, we finally made it to Mohammed's brother's village. There we were once again met with the jovial groups of little ones who came over to touch my white skin with heartwarming curiosity. "Tanaemuna," I said to them, having learned how to say "hello there" in Susu, which sent the little audience into raptures. Meanwhile, my partner secured the phone number of one of our moto taxi drivers and said he would call him when we were ready to head back. This was a wise move, since in that distant village there probably weren't chauffeurs to be found that easily. He then led me to a well-built, low stone house and told me, "All right, man, this is Van Damme's house." "His name is Van Damme, like the actor?" I asked, but didn't have time to get an answer before the man in question stepped out of the curtain-covered doorway and came over to greet us. My partner's older brother was a gently smiling, slightly limping man in his 40s. He admired my guitar with keen pleasure and invited us into his living room, inside a very comfortable stone-walled hut that had lush couches and different kinds of musical equipment laying around a couple of low tables. Without further ado, he gave Mohammed a microphone that was attached to a portable speaker and started to play my guitar to accompany him. And there we were, right inside musical Mysteryland. His playing was just as lightning fast and multi-layered as what the ceremonial guitarist from the previous night had produced, combining rhythm and lead guitar phrases that intertwined into an unbelievably rich arrangement of music. "That is so awesome," I said to Van Damme in French after they finished one song. "Mohammed was right. You are a master guitar player." "Thank you, my friend," he said, and handed me the guitar. "Now you try that. It's in C major." Needless to say, my efforts were more than embarrassing after that spectacle, but with his patient help, I was at least able to understand the key and basic accompaniment of that particular rhythm, which was called yankadi. I also recorded their performance with my phone in order to study it back at the hotel. Meanwhile, the children had gathered in the doorway to sit in the shade and listen to the music. Excited by my presence, they kept grinning and waving their hands at me to see how I would react. I responded with equal jollity, reaching out as if to tickle them, and had a good time fooling around like a juvenile. It was a novel experience to me, being an only child in my family and not having known almost any children during my life. Finnish families were minuscule as a rule and didn't mingle with each other that much, as even siblings rarely saw each other, besides the compulsory Christmas celebrations, which were as a rule very dry and spiritless formalities, like all so-called festivities in that forlorn nation. Between these awe-inspiring lessons and performances, Van Damme told me about himself as well as the origin of his strange nickname. "I used to love fighting when I was young," he said with a shameful smile. "I was always challenging boys to boxing matches with me." "And you kicked their asses, all of them," my partner chimed in with a laugh. "Everyone was afraid of Morlai back then." That's my real name," he said. "But people started to call me Van Damme like the movie star because I fought so much." "What happened then?" I asked. "You found music and stopped fighting?" "No. First I had an accident. You can see that I have a limp on my left leg. It happened many years ago. I was riding a motorcycle, coming from a party, and this big truck pushed me in the ditch in full speed. I broke my leg, and my pelvis was shattered partly." I looked at his leg in horror and saw that it was indeed bent outwards. "That made me stop all the craziness that I was doing," he said. "It was a sign from God that I should change my life. And so I began to play music and found the real meaning of my life. I'm just grateful that I'm alive, you know." This revelation had led him down a remarkable path indeed. Van Damme had recorded multiple albums with famous Guinean singers and had toured the whole country with different groups, as well as having acted as a teacher to Western musicians who wanted to study the art of mandeng. Upon my admitting bashfully that I couldn't pay him much for his help, the man chuckled and said it was a pleasure to help a friend of his brother's, who thereby was a friend of his. I'm playing in this one club every Wednesday with my band, he said. You should come and listen. Maybe you and Mohammed can perform a few of your songs with us as well. And there's a few other clubs where we perform also. I'll let you guys know when I have some shows coming up. Do you think you could come by to teach Tom at the hotel sometime? My partner asked. Of course, I have my motorbike. Give me your number, Tom. We can arrange all that. The man was so humble and polite that it was at direct odds with his vast experience and undeniable virtuosity. I had spent enough time with Finnish musicians to be up to my teeth with their egotism, jealousy, and bragging, as well as their substance abuse and mental health problems. So this kind-hearted and clear-headed musical instructor was like a gift from heaven to me. We spent a wonderful couple of hours in this musical oasis, mixed with the joyful titter of children, until Van Damme told us that he had a practice that he had to attend to. My partner called our moto-taxi drivers to come pick us up, and I glued myself once again to my hockey star driver's sweaty back, which now smelled like he had taken a swim in the gutter during the interval. But that was nothing that a luxurious shower couldn't eradicate back at the hotel, where we did end up safe and sound. Praise Allah. After stepping out to the terrace in order to dry myself in the sun with a towel around me, I discovered my partner standing there, holding up 2 large plastic pots that contained delicious-smelling warm food. "Surprise!" he said with a grin. "Where did you get that?" I asked, my mouth watering as I marveled at 2 whole fish that resembled flounders, fried golden crispy, that were inside one of the pots mixed with glazed onions and fresh chili paste. The other pot contained steaming white rice and metal utensils. My partner pointed towards a smiling, traditionally dressed lady who walked over around the corner and came over to shake my hand. Hello, I said to her while blushing. I'm sorry that I'm not properly dressed. I didn't know. No problem, she said and looked me up and down with a laugh. You look handsome, Fote. This is my friend Bintu, Mohammed told me. She's a singer and a dancer in my old dance group. We used to tour all over Gambia and Guinea back in the day. She will cook and bring us food every day when we want. Not only did Bintu radiate goodwill like an angel, but she also cooked like a divinity on top of it. Please join in, I asked her as we started to cut into the white-fleshed fish that was seasoned with eloquent fresh spices. No, thank you, she said, but still grabbed a little piece with her fingers. I already ate with my family, but it's hard not to join other people when they eat. In here, my partner told me, everyone always eat together. Nobody ever eat alone. You guys are so lucky, I said. Most Finnish people eat alone, watching television and cooking some cheap ready-made shit they bought in plastic boxes from a store. That's not nice, Bintu said with a shake of her head. How can you enjoy food on your own like that? Food isn't enjoyed in Finland that much, I went on. People eat it for sustenance mostly, counting the calories and not using any spices to hurt their sensitive stomachs. They just need energy quickly to keep working effectively to make more money for themselves. And then they buy big houses, my partner added with a laugh, and they live there by themselves with their money. Bintu found all of this hard to believe, and I couldn't blame her. In her native land, human interaction, sharing, and togetherness were the foundation that all life was built on. She couldn't imagine a whole nation of people fighting for their own interests, separated from each other, cold and distant like planets, disconnected from what makes us humans in the most profound sense of the word. I didn't want to push all of this depressing narrative to her, though. This was no place to talk about home, but to sit and take in what was happening then and there with those affectionate souls that you shared it with. We spent a wonderful evening filling our bellies with Bintu's culinary creations and chatting away until the moon was once again beaming at us in the cloudless black sky. But now it was not completely full anymore, and I noticed a strange anomaly as to what I had gotten used to. "Look at that," I said to my friends. "The crescent of the moon starts from below, not from the side like in Europe." Both Bintu and Mohammed laughed as they were feasting on some fresh oranges that she had brought over as well. "This is not Europe, man," my partner commented. "This place is totally different in so many ways." "I love it," I said while reclining back on the comfortable wicker chair and raising my hand in a benediction. "God bless this country and everyone in it. And, God bless Finland too, and all the poor bastards who have to live there."